Hello and welcome to Conversations with Ruth. I am Ruth. I am also known as Notorious RVG. During the time I worked with ACLU, I encountered legal aid attorneys and was always impressed with their dedication and good work. I realized that I do not know much about legal aid of North Carolina. I have wondered what legal aid really is. How is legal aid able to serve all those that are eligible for its services? That legal aid not only provides services in specific areas, but to target populations, such as veterans, seniors, Native Americans, and victims of trafficking. Equally important is what are the services legal aid provides? Well, to answer those questions, I ask that you join me in a series of interviews about getting to know legal aid of North Carolina. I promise you that I and you together, we will learn what legal aid is and what services it provides. Hi there, welcome to Conversations with Ruth. I am Ruth, and I have felt compelled to show and tell people, don't call me RBG or Notorious RBG. I prefer to be called Justice. Today's interview is part of a series getting to know legal aid. And we want to know what legal aid is and what legal aid does. Our conversation today is going to be about one of the target groups of legal aid. Instead of talking about what legal aid does in a specific area of law, we're going to talk about what legal aid does with certain special vulnerable populations, such as children. And in the area of children, legal aid concentrates on education. So the question to answer today is what legal aid does in the area of education. And to answer that question, we are lucky to have Darcel Diller. And Darcel, you are an attorney practicing in Durham. Is that right?
That's
Thank
correct.
you for coming.
You're welcome. Thanks
Durham,
for having me.
The Bull City.
Bull City.
And tell me, do they still have the cardboard bull in the field?
I believe so.
All right, I know about that. She's also a volunteer with legal aid, and that makes her perfect for me to learn about what legal aid does in this area. Maybe we should narrow it a little bit, and I'm thinking that perhaps finding out what are the most common issues that legal aid handles in the education area.
Right. So some of the common issues legal aid handles regarding education would be, making sure that students are enrolled in school. Also ensuring that they, receive any appropriate special services that may be needed. There's also a push to ensure that students are not discriminated against in school as well. So there are several goals that we have regarding education, and those are just some of the common, questions and areas where we advise, but there are other areas also that, we provide services as well.
Well, and let's say someone calls for one of those areas, let's say a disciplinary problem. What services would they get?
Okay, so in that case, they would get an individual attorney to advise. First of all, they will assess the case, but they will ultimately advise and or provide representation for the matter.
And when they provide representation, Darcel, what does that mean in the context of education?
So there are several things that means. It could be as simple as meeting with the school principal, meeting with the school board, attending IEP meetings, which stands for Individual Education Plan. So we are there to, provide support and to be in those important meetings to advocate for the children. And if needed, we will also attend hearings at the Office of Hearings and Appeals on behalf of
So there's
students.
several levels of
Yes.
representation.
Mm-hmm.
And that way the case is concluded, whatever level resolves the problem.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that. Looking at the website, I noticed that the Advocates for Children Services of Legal Aid is a specialized project that handles a lot of education. Tell me about it. What is it?
Right, so the Advocates for Children is a statewide legal aid project, and you mentioned it specializes in education. That project also provides co-counsel, training for attorneys, and also handles very complicated education matters for students.
I see. What about, cases of discipline involving students with disabilities? Are those treated differently?
No, so cases involving disciplinary actions with students who are have a disability are assessed, and we try to see if the conduct is related to the disciplinary issue. If so, what we want to do is to work to provide an alternative disciplinary action for that student if it's related to the disability.
I see. So if the bad conduct or the conduct that resulted in discipline is related to disability, and is the process, the due process, is that the same as if the student was not disabled?
So there is still a due process for students that are not disabled. Individual attorney will assess the facts for that matter as well, and go through the school to provide due process for that student. What we want to do is to ensure there isn't excessive, suspensions and expulsions related to student discipline.
I see. I see. One area that has caught the interest of a lot of the communities is bullying and harassment. And legal aid gets involved in those cases. What kind of assistance they provide in those areas?
So, as you mentioned, bullying and harassment is a big issue right now, especially in the age of social media. And what we do is we ensure that, we assess the case. We want to ensure that it is based on, we want to make sure it's based on a protected status. So if it's related to their sexual orientation, their disability, religion, their race, we prioritize those cases because we want to ensure that those kids are provided the protection that they need. So we do work with that population, and we ensure that those kids are receiving adequate service from legal aid.
And I can see that in all those areas we have talked about, whoever calls legal aid for help gets one-to-one individualized assistance. Education of the community is apparently a very important part of legal aid services. And I imagine in this area, parents sometimes need to know what are their rights, what they can do, what legal aid does in this area.
Right. So legal aid offers clinics throughout the state to inform parents on the services they provide related to the education of students. For example, during the summer, there are clinics that legal aid provides to help parents successfully enroll their kids in school. So that's just one example of all the many services that legal aid offers and the clinics they offer throughout the state to help students.
And in addition to education, they provide self-help materials so people can do it on their own?
Yes, there is self-help materials available, and also on the website there are resources.
Tell me about special education services, because I realize that that's an area that many parents who have children with disabilities need assistance. What services legal aid provides?
So what legal aid provides is an attorney to help ensure that students who are suspected of having a disability are, for one, they're identified and evaluated, and or to ensure that if they are currently receiving services, that those services are appropriate and they're meeting their needs. So those are some of those services that we provide related to disabilities.
Finally, I know we talk about advocates for children's services, and I want to make sure I'm not confusing it with the Child's Advocate Project, which appears to be only in Wake County. Can you tell me what's the difference between the two?
Sure. So the Child's Advocate Project of Wake County is focused on providing an attorney who's court appointed to provide support in high litigation situations and matters. And also they work with children who are going to be a witness in criminal proceedings, and that differs from the project that Legal Aid offers, the Advocate Project from Legal Aid, because we're focused on educational issues. So that's the main difference, is that we're specialized in the advocates for children through Legal Aid in educational matters.
I see. Well, Sarah, I think this is all the time we have. I really appreciate you taking your time and talking to us about it. It's an important area, and many parents need to know that Legal Aid is there to provide these services. And for all of you that are watching us, I thank you for joining us, and I invite you for future episodes of Conversations with Ruth. Thank you.